you don't stand up for what's right in life, you can end up being a serf and a slave, and you're leaving your children a world that you wouldn't want to live in yourself. So how can you, in decency, behave that way? You have to stand up for what's right in life. And unless you do that, you're nothing.
These children are victims of one of the most brutal terrorist groups in the world, the Lord's Resistance Army. Led by this man, Joseph Kony, they have terrorized the people of Sudan, Uganda and Congo, raping, murdering, mutilating and abducting innocents. But one American missionary is fighting back. In the past 10 years, Sam Childers has saved more than 1,000 children from the LRA. About 300 of them are living at his children's village orphanage in Nimale, Sudan. The compound is protected by soldiers of the South Sudan Army, and here the children find safety, food and shelter. But even those safely inside cannot escape the awful memories of what they've seen.
If you sleep here on the compound, there's not a night goes by that you won't hear the cries and screams in the middle of the night. These children got to relive what happened to them.
In his book, Another Man's War, Childers recounts his life as a former drug dealer who turned to Christ and now spends his time fighting for the lives of children in East Africa.
You were one tough hombre a few years ago.
No, I wasn't a tough person. I was mean.
Oh, you were, is there a difference?
There's a big difference. Tough person don't get beat up. I was beat up a lot, but I was a very, very mean person growing up through high school and even when I got out of high school. And I used to like to fight, but I still like to fight. I'm a preacher, but I still like to fight.
You still like?
Yeah.
Well, you take weapons, or somebody gives you weapons. You don't just go in there like a sweet missionary with a Bible in your hand.
Absolutely. I'm a soldier. Matter of fact, they call me, the machine gun preacher is my nickname.
All right.
And somebody just made a website for us that's called the Machine Gun Preacher. But they say I'm good with a machine gun, but I'm better with a pistol.
I don't want to run you short. Well, what do you have to do? This Kony, he's been roaming around. Why doesn't somebody kill him?
You know, I've been trying for a long time, and there's a lot of other people trying. I believe it's the same thing. Why can't we get bin Laden? And it doesn't mean we should stop, but we need to be trying, and we need to try a lot harder. But I believe a lot of this is turning into a spiritual war. This Kony is plumb full of the devil. He gets all of his power from Satan. I mean, he even says it. He hears his orders also from spirits, you know.
Well, the viciousness, I mean, the dismembering of these people, beating up, ripping up pregnant women, cutting off their hands, cutting them children's arms off at the shoulder. This is horrible.
Absolutely. Well, he does this so his victims will scare the other people. So it will make them leave the area. Something he's been doing recently is even skinning victims alive. I mean, it's just unheard of. It's living.
Well, you said that in the orphanage they scream at night because of the terror.
I tell you what, since over the last couple years, I put a playground in the orphanage. And it's really done amazing things for these children. So now you're hearing during the day some laughter and everything. So it's not near as bad as it was. So this has been a lot of help for these children that's been shot and arms cut off, legs cut off. So they're doing really good now.
Well, you go back in there, you risk your life, obviously. You're not just going to have a walk up a dirt road.
Yeah, well, like I've always said, I don't have a problem with dying. Sometimes I have more of a problem with living. You know, so yeah, dying's something you only got to do one time. And I mean, if you see these children's faces, I believe anyone would do the work that I do.
Well, you wake up sobbing yourself, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
The cries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would have never dreamed that a book was going to come out of this. I would have never dreamed a movie. I would have never dreamed any of this. But God has really been good.
Sam, how can people help you? I know they want to do it.
People can get on our website, machinegunpreacher.org. But I got to give God all the credit.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you hear the stories in there, there's no possible way that I could be alive here today sitting if God did not keep me alive. I mean, there's just no way.
I want to ask people to pray for Sam. He's an incredible guy, but the terror that's being vented on these people, it's Satan. Satan hates human beings, and unfortunately, those who serve him have got to be taken out of the way somehow or other. I mean, he kills, and somehow along the way, somebody's got to imprison him or kill him or do whatever. This Coney is just a monster. And Sam, I wish you the best. You know, good hunting, brother.
Hey, God bless you. Thank you very much.
God bless you.
But it's even a little deeper than that. Ben Lawton trained in the same training camp as the guy that I've been fighting for the past 8 years.
Wow. And this is that,
so they're all,
Coney,
Joseph Coney and Ben Lawton trained in the same training camp in northern Sudan. If you look at Al-Qaeda terrorism, and you look at the root of it comes out of northern Sudan.
Like most of the SPLA, Dr. Justin is a Christian, opposed to the Islamic regime of the north.
If I'm not acceptable because I'm a Christian and all these things, then something must be drastically wrong about the Sudan.
For although Islam preaches forgiveness and tolerance, the Khartoum regime stands accused of utter intolerance. Can you tell me, how do you feel as Minister for Justice in a country that has been slated by organizations like Amnesty International as having the worst human rights records in the world?
This does not fit with our character, with our religious beliefs, and with our tolerance. These accusations are the product of the opposition, which is in exile.
Well, mostly because they say they're afraid to come back.
Yes.
But we need to stop this so no more children is going to be shot like this one, or harmed like this one, or raped like the other ones we have here, or arms cut off like our other children. It needs to be stopped.
The Quran commands, Allah said, any person who leaves Islam or encourages others to do so should be seized and slain. Allah told Muhammad that all those who opposed his message should be killed, or they should be nailed to a tree with their hands and legs should be cut off. The Quran teaches, when you meet or fight those who disbelieve, strike at their necks till when you have killed and wounded many of them. You're supposed to kill the heretics if they don't believe in the Quran and Allah. The third surah, verse 105 and 106 says, in the great and final day of redemption, only white faces will be saved, all blackened faces will be condemned. This is what they teach, okay? They say, men, marry as many women as you like, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Under Islam, you can have up to 4 wives at a time, and if you want to have temporary marriages, you can get married for 15 minutes. That's pornography is what it is. Okay, it's perverted. Look, I'm not anti-Muslim for the people. I'm anti what they teach. I'm for truth. I'm against error, even if it's my own mother. If she's 99% right and 1% wrong, I'll praise her for the 99 and say, Mom, you're wrong on the 1. So I'm not anti anybody. I'm anti-error. And what they teach is error. It's not true. Remember, it was the Muslims that bombed Pan Am Flight 103. It was the Muslims that bombed the World Trade Center in 1993. It was the Muslims that bombed the Marine barracks in Lebanon. They bombed military barracks in Saudi Arabia. They bombed the American Embassy in Africa. They bombed the USS Cole. They bombed the Twin Towers, 9/11. This is a danger. You cannot be a good Muslim without wanting to kill everybody else who's not a Muslim. That's what the Quran commands. So get out of that religion and accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. There's an excellent little bitty comic book called The Prophet you can get from our ministry. It's like $2 or something like that, by Jack Chick. He goes through the history of the Muslim church and how they started. Very few people realize it was the Catholics that started Islam. They started the whole religion purposely to try to get the Holy Land back for the Catholics. They built up the Islam, they funded Muhammad, they trained him, they sent a Catholic nun out of the monastery. They said, we want you to come out of your convent, go find a young promising Muslim, marry him, and train him to raise up an army of Arabs to go take back the Holy Land for the Mother Church. Quite an interesting story if you want to read about that. It started to work, but then it failed because Islam got so big, they said, well, forget you Catholics, we're doing what we want. And I don't think most Muslims, which is now, what, 10–20% of the world population, Islam, I don't think most of them know that they really started off as a front for the Catholic Church. So let's cover just a little bit on Muslims. Ask the Muslims, how do you know, how do you know Muhammad was a prophet? They'll say, well, he had a mole on his back. Holy moly. That's how you know he's a prophet, because he's got a mole on his back. I've got a mole on my back. Got one right here on my cheek. Man, I must be a double prophet. Got 2 moles. Albert, you got any moles? Yeah. Wow, bow down and worship Albert, In one of the Muslim verses says, Muhammad asked the question, when I am dead and buried in the ground and go back to dust, is that all? What will happen to me? Muhammad himself had no clue if he was going to heaven. This verse in the Quran says, when he reached the setting of the sun, he found it set in a pond of murky water. Would that be scientifically accurate to say the sun sets in a pond of murky water? No. I would say the earth turns around and the sun, appears to go around the earth. This is not scientifically accurate. The Quran has loads of scientific errors. It's not a holy book. Allah commands any person who leaves Islam or encourages others to do so should be seized and slain. There are over 100 commands in the Quran to kill people who won't convert. Anybody that won't convert has to be killed. And I see Bush and these guys saying, we're trying to bring democracy in Iraq. The problem with Iraq is their religion. They are being taught every couple days in the synagogue, you've got to kill anybody who won't convert. And there probably are millions of Muslims who don't like this and they don't want to do that, but in order to be a good Muslim, you have to kill anybody else who won't become Muslim. That's the rules, okay?
What does the word Islam mean?
Peace.
Well, I think it's a false premise to assume what they say is peace really is peace.
Islamic apologists in the West will say Islam means peace.
It's like the communists said, we want peace, a piece of this country and the piece of that country, and put it all together.
But the Arabic word Islam, from aslama yastaslimu istislam, the root word of the word Islam means submission or surrender to the will of Allah.
There is Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. It's either Islam or the sword.
And they will kill Jew or Gentile or anyone who refuses to accept their philosophy.
Allah is very tolerant, and He is inviting the non-Muslims to His religion, Islam, because what Allah is saying, if you don't accept Islam, then you will have a very painful punishment forever after your death.
And shouldn't we be loving the Muslims like our neighbors?
Oh, I love the Muslims. I'd love to lead them to Christ. But I don't want them coming to my home and cutting off the heads of my children. There's not very much at all holy about Muhammad. He was a very evil man. As a matter of fact, I think much of the Quran was inspired by the devil himself.